We got a report coming in from NFL insider Albert Breer, where he suggested that the Arizona Cardinals might not end up trading Kyler Murray this offseason, but just could flat out cut Kyler. Now, we'll dive into that on today's show. Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman. Now, before we dive into it, big time programming announcement here on the channel. We are unleashing our St. Patrick's Day merch. We have our Minnesota drinking team going for only $29.99 right now. So if you guys want to get some more Vikings merch for the holidays, click that link in the comments section and description of today's show. Sweet design. And if you guys also want to help support us here at Vikings Now, just click that link in the comments section and description of today's show and get ready for St. Patrick's Day, because after this Vikings season, I'm sure all of us will be having a couple beers on St. Patrick's Day. So hit that link in the comments section and description of today's show. And also make sure you guys are subscribed here to the channel. This offseason is about to ramp up with the scouting combine here in about 6 days-ish. A lot of these GMs and these coaches are going to be talking. A lot of rumors will be flying around. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We'll get a lot more reports on whether it's Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy, and Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, whoever it may be. We'll keep you guys posted with it all here at the channel. So hit that subscribe button today, and let's see if we can get 10 new subscribers on today's show. All right, so NFL insider Albert Breer, very tapped in with the Minnesota Vikings over the last couple of seasons. He was talking with Colin Cowherd on his show recently, and he talked about a guy like Kyler Murray being an option for the Minnesota Vikings, is what Albert had to say, saying when you look at Kyler, you need to look at him through the same lens as Darnold, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, and Geno Smith. Does somebody look at him and say, I can get more out of him? You know who did a really good job at that the last couple of years? It was the Minnesota Vikings. When I look at Kyler, it would be a landing spot like the Vikings. Now, what complicates that is the contract. Kyler's got $36.8 million guaranteed this year, and then another $19.5 million next year. So that complicates trading for him. That complicates cutting him. So I think it makes it more likely that Arizona has to move off him and flat out cut him and let him go to the market. Maybe it's Minnesota, maybe it's the Jets. We will see. I think the contract makes it a little harder to hang on to him and a little harder to trade him, which makes it more likely that they will cut him. Now, I will say, if the Cardinals do end up cutting Kyler Murray, and he's just a flat-out free agent, and he could go sign to any team this offseason, the Vikings need to seriously consider it. Now, I'm not saying here, the Vikings need to go bring in Kyler Murray. Like, this is the guy that's going to fix all the issues. But Kyler, he's got some top-end talent. He was the number 1 pick in the draft for a reason. He was even a top 10 pick in the MLB draft because this guy is just an all-time great athlete. Now, has he had his shortcomings in the NFL? That is for sure. We'll talk about that on the second half of today's show. But Kyler Murray is a guy where the Vikings want to take a risk at the quarterback position. He fits that bill. Now, from the Cardinals side of things, this is where I think a move with Kyler Murray is going to happen before March 15th. So from today to March 15th, the Cardinals would be, in the negative of losing $2.05 million if they end up cutting him, and they would be taking on a $54 million dead cap hit. So not huge financial benefits for Arizona if they cut him before March 15th, but if they cut him after March 15th, that's pretty much not on the table. Like, you would be taking on $77 million of dead cap, and you'd be losing $24.5 million on the cap in 2026. Now, if they trade him, obviously they have more benefit, but I still have doubts if a team will be willing to take on that contract. Now, you could obviously work it out where maybe the Vikings, maybe they're offering a 4th-round pick for Kyler. Maybe Cardinals come back to you and say, hey, all right, we'll take on half of his guaranteed money if you give us a 3rd-round pick. That could very well be in the folds. But I think a decision on Kyler will come before that March 15th deadline. And let's just say he is cut. I could see Kyler taking a Russell Wilson type of deal. Or if you guys remember, after Russell Wilson was cut from the Denver Broncos and he got paid all that guaranteed money up front after they cut him, what did he do? He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, signed a very team-friendly deal. I think it was for $2.1 million. Now, do I think Kyler will probably take a little more than that? I could see him taking the Darnold deal, which he signed with the Minnesota Vikings, maybe 1 for 10. But Kyler, money won't be an issue since he's already going to get paid all that guaranteed money up front from the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the downside of the Vikings potentially signing Kyler Murray is, what does that mean for JJ McCarthy? Because if you bring in Kyler and you have a quarterback competition of Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy, I think that pretty much means that the Vikings would be done with JJ at least for next season, because you're not bringing in a guy like Kyler Murray to be the backup quarterback. I just think there's too much noise. There's too much, talent with his natural ability to be the backup quarterback for JJ. So that complicates things as well from the Viking side of things, where it's like, okay, you bring in Kyler, what does that mean for JJ McCarthy? Now, I saw this graphic from Alec Lewis talking about JJ McCarthy's rookie season, and truly how up and down it was, but mainly what was concerning is just his accuracy this past season. His on-target throw percentage was 66.5. Just in comparison, you guys see Anthony Richardson on the fifth line there. During his rookie year, it was 74.1, and the bad throw percentage was absolutely horrific. It was 21.3%, where Anthony Richardson was just 21%. And you see him compared to other rookie quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels, C.J. Stroud, Joe Burrow, Herbert, even a guy like Cam Ward who struggled this season. JJ McCarthy was by far the worst. I mean, he was in David Blau territory for how inaccurate he was this past season. Now, let's just say they do end up signing Kyler Murray. Would the Vikings try to trade JJ McCarthy? I have my doubts there. I don't think the Vikings would just want to flat out trade McCarthy. Like, what could you really get for him at this point? Could you get a third and a fifth round pick? Maybe on a team trying to take a chance on the kid out of Michigan, but I have my doubts if, you do bring in Kyler, would they just flat out trade McCarthy? I think it's more likely that, like, it's almost like another redshirt year for JJ, where it's like, hey, we're going to ride out with Kyler for this one season. You still learn from behind the scenes, fix those mechanic issues, grow up a little bit, because I still think with JJ McCarthy in this Viking situation, they want more maturity at the quarterback position. Now, is Kyler the best option to get more maturity at that spot? Probably not. But again, Kyler's 28 years old now. He has probably learned a lot from his past shortcomings in Arizona, where he understands where it's like, hey, I probably have one or two more chances here in the NFL to be that franchise quarterback. And plus, Kyler grew up a Minnesota Vikings fan. He was talking about that in an interview over the last couple of years, where he was saying, yeah, I grew up a Vikings fan, so obviously I would have a lot of love for that organization. So a lot of moving parts in this, but I'll ask you guys this. Would you want Kyler to be QB1 for 2026? If it's for a 1 year, $10 million deal, I'm doing it 110%. But you guys let me know. Would you sign Kyler Murray? Give me an S for sign or give me a P for pass. Chime in down below. Now, this tweet resurfaced on Vikings Twitter over the last couple of weeks, and it was from 2019 from Tom Pelissero. And he tweeted out saying, Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray played for a team called the Vikings as a kid, so he grew up a Vikings fan. Randy Moss, Dante Culpepper, Brett Favre in 2009, until the end, says that one hurt. Talking about the Vikings losing back in 2019 in the playoffs that season. So clearly Kyler, Vikings fan. He was also talking about it in an interview recently. And the one thing on the Kyler Murray front, which I don't really understand from Vikings fans' perspectives here, is people act like Kyler Murray is just a complete bust at this point. And I don't get this whatsoever, because we saw the Vikings take a chance on a guy like Sam Darnold, where Sam Darnold, he was written up as a bust, coming from the Jets, went to Carolina, went to San Francisco. Nobody thought Darnold had that much left in the tank, and now this guy just won a Super Bowl 11 months later after he left the Minnesota Vikings. Kyler falls in that bucket, where it's like a guy who was drafted very high, top 5 in the draft, Kyler being number 1, where he didn't work out with his previous organization like the Arizona Cardinals, where the Cardinals, I don't think they get enough backlash for being as bad of an organization as they've been compared to like the Jets, the Giants over the last couple of years. It's a disaster there in Arizona. So he falls in that bucket where it's like he couldn't overcome that bad organization. But the Vikings, even though they've never won a Super Bowl, they've always been a good organization. Not great, but they've had stability for quarterbacks over the last couple of seasons. And, why I would have some interest in Kyler is the Vikings need to be aggressive. You're at a turning point in this franchise right now. You could go the safe route of like Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, or you could take a risk on one of these two guys. And I think the risk are Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. The risk you'd be taking with JJ McCarthy is, do you believe in him developing this offseason? I know a crazy concept for NFL fans, especially Vikings fans, is a 23-year-old kid developing during the offseason, but that very well could happen. So do you want to take that risk of JJ McCarthy developing, or do you want to take the risk of a guy like Kyler Murray? Can he develop into becoming, one of the franchise quarterbacks in the NFL? You got to determine which lane you want to go down, but I would rather have them go down either of those two lanes compared to this route, where it's the Kirk Cousins, the Mac Jones route. Because I think if you went the Kirk or Mac Jones route, you're pretty much saying, like, yes, the floor is a lot higher. You bring in Kirk Cousins, you bring in Mac Jones, the Vikings could probably be 9-8 next season. They could even be 10-7. But are you winning a playoff game? Probably not. Now, if you bring in Kyler Murray, I think the floor is a lot lower, but also the ceiling is a whole lot higher because of his natural football playing ability. And Kyler, over the last 4 seasons, when I will say this has been the worst stretch of pro football he has played, he's still better than what the Vikings have had, especially this past season. And why I love Kyler, his fit with the Vikings, because we know on script Kevin O'Connell can still scheme it up but I like the backyard football playing ability, and that's the rushing aspect that Kyler brings. He is still a dynamic rusher. I mean, even back in 2024 when he played all 17 games, still ran for over 570 yards, had 5 touchdowns on the ground, and he has been, still one of the more dynamic dual threat quarterbacks in the National Football League. Now, the concerns with Kyler, I think, comes on him pushing the ball down the field. Now, Kyler was fantastic during his first 3 seasons. Like 2019, completing 41.9% of his passes on 20-plus yard throws. 2020, 42.2. 2021 was one of the best deep ball throwers in the National Football League, 46.1%. But the last couple of years has not been great, especially the stretch from 2022 to 2024 where he was just flat out horrible. Now, normally the league average is around 35 to 38%, and Kyler wasn't even close to that number, especially in 22 and 23. But there's no doubt Kyler, he is accomplished. He has been one of the highest, recruits that we have seen coming out of the college football landscape over the last decade. I mean, he was the Heisman Trophy winner. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-American, first team All-Big 12. He was a top 10 pick in the MLB draft, first overall pick in the NFL draft, Offensive Rookie of the Year, 2-time Pro Bowler. So he has been there and he has done it. Now, also, Kyler with the Arizona Cardinals, it's not like he went to a good organization. Like the Cardinals and the coaching he has had, the combination of Cliff Kingsbury and Jonathan Gannon has been horrible. I mean, you compare those coaches to a guy like Kevin O'Connell, even though I have my gripes with KOC and I have my problems with them, it is still night and day. KOC is a better offensive mind, just a better overall head coach than what Kyler has had in Arizona. And still, 10 games below 500, I can honestly chalk that up as almost a positive around Kyler Murray, that it wasn't a complete disaster in Arizona. Now, it all comes back to the scheme fit with Kyler. I think that's probably my biggest doubt I have on this fit with the Minnesota Vikings. Would Kevin O'Connell view Kyler Murray as a good schematic fit with his offense where KOC still wants to be under center a good amount? He wants to push the ball down, especially over the middle of the field with those deep in-breaking routes to Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Is that, what Kyler Murray is great at? Not necessarily. But here's another wild thought, and this is why I've been so frustrated with Kevin O'Connell, especially this past season. How about he adjusts his offense? Like, we have seen Sean McVay this past year, where obviously KOC coming from the McVay tree. What did McVay do? He went heavy personnel. He went 3 tight ends. He went 2 tight ends more than any offensive play caller in the National Football League. He adjusted. He got ahead of the curve. And it just seems like Kevin O'Connell over the past couple of years, he's been a step or 2 behind from these league trends. But now if you bring in Kyler Murray, all right, adjust your offense a little bit and try to get the most out of him, because I still think coaching, it's obviously, what do you do well? Can you do that at a high level? But also, can you adjust to the quarterback you have? Because Kevin O'Connell treated JJ McCarthy and even Max Brosman this past season like he had Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, these veteran quarterbacks who have been there and done that. He didn't adjust at all. He didn't lean more into the run. So with a guy like Kyler Murray, KOC would obviously have to adjust. But I think there's a good chance that Kyler ends up being the quarterback for the Vikings next season, because they got to take a risk, and I don't think they view Kirk Cousins or Mac Jones as a risk at all. I think now also if they view like their jobs are on the line and KOC understands if he has another year like he did this past year, he's probably going to get fired. Maybe he goes that safe direction of Kirk and Mac Jones, but maybe it's just my fan coming out of me, but I would much rather have them take a risk and go with Kyler Murray. And if you can't get Kyler, or you can't get a guy like Joe Burrow who won't be available, just take a risk on the quarterback who you spent the 10th overall pick on in JJ McCarthy. But if you guys made it to the end of today's show, appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Just hit me with those skulls down below in the comments section. We'll have another video coming out later today on the channel, so stay tuned for that. See you guys next time. As always, Skull Vikes.